It's our live audience show on Wednesday. Welcome to the show. I am Morayo Afolabi Brown. As always, I have the ladies in the building. Hi, Nima. How you doing?
Very well. Today is a
See you yesterday now.
Yeah. Tokwe saved my neck yesterday. I would have died of stress. So I stayed home. I thought I was going to sleep. But apparently, as the official house girl, like I always say, I resumed work from morning
calling yourself official house girl.
7. I have 2 kids, a husband, a home to run, a partnership to run.
A domestic entrepreneur. That's what you are. Domestic entrepreneur.
A law firm.
The meaning is that all those names are just, hypes. They're just touching it up. The real thing is that I get down to it, hands in the work and do everything.
I felt that way.
So I felt fulfilled at the end of the day, Sha. I looked at the rooms and everywhere and it was sparkling. I said, okay, you try.
We are starting a renovation for the baby. Because baby coming soon. Just the house.
Getting ready.
There's a carpenter taking measurements, trying to...
You don't look like baby coming soon. I told someone that baby was coming and the person was like, it's a lie. She does not look like
Everyone's calling me. I've seen it already.
We're very expectant. and I'm pretty close, actually.
Yeah, that's the surprising part.
So
I'd like to say happy birthday to Kike Lomo Abbas.
Yes, so
Kiki's
just
happy birthday. I know. When that just welcomed me into the TVC door this morning, I had to say
happy birthday, Kike.
No, but you can go too.
Happy birthday. Yes, so I want to celebrate Kike. It's been a really, really tough past 1 year for her. And, you meet people through different circumstances, and she's been really, really sweet. And I pray that as life has dealt with her, she would also deal with life. She would happen to life. This new year, she would experience peace, joy, happiness than ever
and for those
before.
that don't know, Kike is actually one of our guest co-hosts. She comes
very our Oyinbo, the Oyinboest Oyinbo.
She comes here pretty often, and she's been up for some time. But
for what she's been through, she's actually a very strong woman.
Yes, she
I used to think I'm the one who has had all the trials, but just a few conversations with her. She told me when I was my job was open.
There is nothing that we go through that God hasn't given us capacity to handle. So I'm sure that this new year will be filled with testimony.
Let's not make her our hot topic today.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to Kike. How are you doing, Oby Ezekwesili?
I am excited about life.
Oh, fantastic. Somebody is finally excited.
I woke up this morning and I said, God, I'm alive. Yeah. I checked on the children. They are alive. Seriously?
What's happened? You dream bad dream?
No. The thing is, when you get excited about life, it makes you grateful to God that you have another opportunity to make a difference today. So I'm really excited. I'm excited Morayo is alive today. She's on the show. And all the guests are here. I'm excited you guys are here.
No, Morayo.
I'm not done. I'm so excited about Nima. You know what happened? We had a deal to buy 1 goat and share.
Seriously?
Yes, so Nima was with the
butcher
yesterday. Killing the goat. She sent me a video and I felt, oh,
Nima, local content. You are very so you sat down and shared goats. You did not share to us.
I understand. It's for the month. We paid.
I know I'm going to pay, but I also want
No, it's not. You don't do something.
One hand.
Exactly.
Who would carry the head? Who will carry the
intestine half? Head half. Everything half.
Anyways, my son is very ill. My son is under the weather. It's not easy taking care of a little boy, 4-year-old. Since Saturday, we've been on this issue, infection. First was malaria, then it's infection, tonsillitis. It's just been crazy. The little boy, they wanted to admit him last night. My husband said, over, dead, but come for it. You're rejected. Like, calm down, man. It's just to monitor the guy. It's just to monitor his health. My brother started speaking in tongues. Like, I understand the part of prayer, but don't worry, he'll be all right. But we thank God for that.
I want to share one very, very private story. We
have
still
20
have 2 seconds.
Yes.
You know that I did sleep well, and this happens every time there's a period. It is terrible. And I know that we should have gotten through it, but women go through a whole lot. You're calculating your period, you're sleeping on one side, sleeping on the other side, and it is terrible, honestly. For those that go through that pain, I'm telling you, I'm feeling it right now.
It's actually my best time.
Seriously?
No. I have never had period pain in my life.
Oh my God, you guys are fake.
You are lucky. I had pains, terrible.
I have never.
But it's actually my best time. It takes off a lot of other things.
I have never
Women, we are strong. We are strong. Oh.
And even I said, because I don't have period pain, that when I'm giving birth, it's be painful. So it's a lie. In 15 minutes, I don't deliver my baby.
Something wonderful like that.
God has been gracious. Anyway, let's go on the break. It's Wednesday. Let's get serious.
It's
not just tomorrow.
It's very serious Wednesday.
Okay, so because we have somebody very important in the studio, so let's comport ourselves, guys.
We have to comport.
You know, we don't want her to think that we are local people. So we're going to go on a break. When we come back, we'll go through the front pages of the papers, and later we'll bring in our special guest. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Starting with the Punch. Minimum wage, we can only pay 22,500, government tells workers. NLC and TUC members protest nationwide. Federal government beefs up security around Aso Villa and others. Police to charge 400 Shiites with terrorism. SEC members set patrol vehicle ablaze. Controversy as UNILAG graduating student dies after final exams. We have decimated Boko Haram. Federal government insists. Lai Mohammed is talking. Violence. I'm watching you closely, Buhari warns police. 2019, PDP to seat House of Rep Speaker to Southwest. Austrian election, Afenifere suspends Omisore for supporting APC. And FG considering options for recruiting electricity industry. Sorry, for rescuing electricity industry. Let's talk about the human interest story here with the young boy, 22-year-old boy.
Yeah, so a 400 level final year student of microbiology from the University of Lagos died, and the issue is the death is generating a lot of controversy. Some people are saying he died, he committed suicide, thinking he would have failed his final year examinations. And others are saying, the family members are saying that he was killed. So according to the story, he visited his uncle and his friend who lived together. They left him in the house, went out. Before they came back, he had taken this sniper and killed himself and died. That was the account. So the management of the school is telling people that they should stop speculating about the cause of death, since the family members are not coming out to say anything about it. And the police is already carrying out a forensic
The other story I want to talk about, our Minister of Information has told us they have decimated Boko Haram. That you guys can recall. Remember Nyanya Park bombing? Remember the United Nations? That those things don't happen again now. All we hear are just skirmishes of pockets of violence here and there, that they've been pushed all the way to that Chad area. So all of you saying that they've not decimated at Boko Haram, they have decimated. According to
papers over the weeks, we've heard about how Boko Haram has taken over army base all down in
that's what we're saying.
Borno State and all that. I think he should also, be dealing with the situation on the side of the army, because the journalists are actually doing their own job and informing us on what is actually happening.
And every time we speak up concerning other things that are contrary to what they want to promote, they will say it is fake news, because it's also there that we've said.
In addition to that, he said that
everything is fake news. Everything that is contrary to.
No, he said that the soldiers saying that they are not being well taken care of is fake news.
But that was based on an investigation. So the Buhari administration has carried an investigation. No, the investigation found out that every material deployed to them got to them intact, and they checked back in the last 3 months that all of them got the materials they needed, their uniform, food, health care.
3 times a day.
They got their food 3 times a day. So
let's move on to the nation. Wage showdown likely as governors offer 22,500. Buhari to deal with killers. Police arrest 400 Shiite protesters in Abuja. Owando posts 10.4 billion profit in Q3. And probe revealed troops not suffering, says Minister. We talked about that already.
President Buhari, good to see him hop on about. He was in Kaduna to visit the, there's been a lot of issue in Kaduna since last week, and he went to visit them and said Kaduna is this premier state of the north, the seat of the new Nigeria. It shouldn't be known as a place of violence, and that it was commiserating with the governor, and they lost a leader, a traditional leader that was murdered in his house, a king sort of.
Some arrests have been made.
And he said that they were going to, they're not going to overlook this. There's been a lot of killings happening around, but this particular one isn't going to be overlooked. About 75 people were confirmed dead, and that they are going to investigate and ensure that the culprits are brought to justice.
As he's not overlooking that, there are also other killings in other parts of the country.
They shouldn't overlook the 3 Shiites that were killed during the protest.
Every
400 have been arrested.
And any excesses of the police, that's what he said.
Okay, moving on very quickly now to Daily Sun. Minimum wage On 30,000, we stand. Trust me, this one to be very dramatic. Says Labour will pay 22,500. So they're now negotiating like a pepper and salt. Right. So Nigeria, highest producer of HIV-infected babies.
Yeah, I have that.
2009, Seventh-day Adventists drag INEC federal government to court over Saturday's voting. The president, 4 PDP South members, South governors meet in Aso Rock. Don't turn Igbo land to war zone. Let me take this Seventh-day Adventists. They're actually dragging INEC to court, saying that Saturdays are the days of their own worship, and that they should be respected, and people shouldn't vote on those days. The same way you probably wouldn't vote on a Friday, on a Sunday, that Saturday is just as sacred to Seventh-day Adventists as we should. So they're taking INEC and federal government to court. When are we talking about Labour?
Should we talk about it now? Yeah. So, you know, yesterday they had, they said they were going to have the governors, Nigeria Governors Forum said they were going to have their meeting, emergency meeting yesterday, and which they did. They came out to say they've agreed to pay 22,500 naira. That for them is not just about naming figures, but they should have the capacity to pay, and they're looking through
Labour,
all the other developments in the country.
Labour held a peaceful protest yesterday, sensitizing people on what will happen on November 6th if the federal government, state governments, and all other parasitals involved do not meet up with the 30,000 minimum wage they are proposing. Now, on that day, every other form of businesses will be shut down. The federal government proposed to pay 22,500. No, that's the state government. Federal government said 24,000, and they are insisting on the 30,000. So I think they should be answering Labour. I hope that Labour can actually win this as strong as Oshomole's time.
Which 3 states?
Edo State, Delta State, and Bayelsa State.
It's on the story of the Nigeria producing 30. Nigeria is producing 30% of mother-to-child transfer of HIV globally. And that is really high, considering how the awareness has been on ground for HIV. Mother-to-child transmission is one of the most preventable ones. So they are launching. The Professor Adewale is launching a new roadmap. That's the Minister for Health. He said that this is called National Treatment and Prevention of Mother-to-Child Transmission of HIV/AIDS in Abuja yesterday. He said that they are going to try and reduce this number. It is really bad.
Okay, let's move on very quickly now to New Telegraph. Police arrest Shiites with 31 petrol-bomb weapons. Labour, no minimum wage, no elections. Only 6 Chibok schoolgirls cited in Sambisa Forest. Right. 2019, lawyers asked court to disqualify Buhari over certificate. A federal government sues Senators Uzodinma Odua over non-declaration of assets. Who has that story?
The Chibok girls story. The spokesperson of the parents of the Chibok girls, Mr. Ayuba Alamson, told news yesterday that against the 57 Chibok girls found in Sambisa, it was 6 that the SKP was able to identify with their parents. So she said she had actually stayed with 6 of them while in Sambisa, and some of them are pregnant, 3 of them are not pregnant, but all of them have been married to Boko Haram foot soldiers.
This is the Shiite story. Yes, Shiites. So yeah, Shiites. 400 protesters have been arrested by the the police command, Abuja Police Command. 31 bottles of petrol bombs were, they got from 2 of the members of the protesters. They had them packaged and they joined commercial buses. So it was during the stop and search that they saw those bottles being smuggled into the city to cause mayhem. So discreet investigation, according to the police, is being carried out right now.
This is the 3rd day of the protest. That was yesterday was the 3rd day of the protest.
It started, yes. It's really,
yes. And they've been peaceful for years, protesting the illegal arrest of their leader, who's been declared should be released by the court and is still being held in custody.
Same as Dasuki.
Yes.
When you say peaceful, I think it's questionable.
Now it is getting violent, but they were peaceful for a long time. You cannot deny. They were peaceful for a long time.
Find someone who's an expert on how these processions are.
There was never a violence.
They do not conform with the law.
Was there violence?
Once they get a permission to do it and you meet a military blockade, I think that's where the limit is. You should have stopped.
Yeah.
Okay, unfortunately, that's all we can take on Front Page Review. When we come back, our special guest takes the couch. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Your View.
Thanks for staying with us. So, she's a former Minister of Education, probably known as Madam Due Process. She's a leading chartered accountant who is a co-founder of Transparency International. She's also one of the co-conveners of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign to find the 300 Nigerian schoolgirls abducted in 2014. She's so many things, but most importantly, she's a woman of integrity and a force to reckon with in this generation. She's also popularly known as, popularly speaking, going around speaking, saying it as it is, you know. This is a woman that says it, drops it as it is. Welcome with us, the powerful Oby Ezekwesili. You see, I tried to give that intro, but it just kind of mumbled in my mouth. But thank you so much for coming. It's good to have you. So you can call us on 070-806-68014. You can also tweet to us at TVC Connect. Please hashtag YourViewTVC so we can read your tweets. Before we get into you and what you've done and what you're known for, I'd like to hear your views on the paper review concerning the minimum wage. Everybody was hoping that some figures initially back in early in the year, 56,000 was running around. People were hoping that we'll get something where that is meaningful for Nigerians. But we hear them debating 24,000, 30,000, 22,500. And we're thinking, all that meeting. In your view, why are we still debating the small figures? And is it possible for us to have a better minimum wage going forward?
So the issue on minimum wage is a very difficult one. The reason is I don't know how many of us realize that already the total revenue from oil is no longer sufficient to pay the salaries of 2 million workers that we have in the public sector. Total earnings from oil. So we're in fiscal stress, we're in serious fiscal pressure. So it is very possible to have a conversation that is not based on reality, and then everybody would get up and smile and be happy. Or we could have a candid conversation that says, why is it like this with us? Why is it that our productivity as a country is not sufficient to concretely allow us to pay people wages that are living wages?
Exactly.
So there is a very candid conversation that both sides are not having.
Quick addition to this, because we have currently the Minister for Finance saying that it is easier for us to sell assets as opposed to taking loans to fund the current budget. And I know that you were in charge of BPE, so you understood. That was how you got to Madam Due Process, because it was...
So BPE is Bureau for Public Enterprise. That one, they are the privatization people.
Yes.
I was BPP, as in due process, which is Bureau for Public Procurement.
Yes. So in linking them together, we have issues of the fact that we have budgeted ₦1 million for a COP, and what it would actually cost should have been 500,000, and then we have a lot of leakages going through those areas. Two, we're taking loans, we're trying to borrow within. What is the right procedure for us to go about funding the current crisis we have right now, which is we don't have money?
Well, the truth is, when you don't have money, that's when you're supposed to become innovative and creative. And so, you either have to improve on your expenditure. In other words, look at your expenditure, find out how you can reduce it significantly. So if you said a cup costs 1 million and it costs 500,000 and you're budgeting it for 1 million, you need to just get that correct, cut it down. And then you face the expenditure side and you improve on it. And then you have to look at the revenue side. To look at the revenue side is basically to say to yourself, what do I do in order to expand the base of the revenue that I can get? And the key way to expand the base of your revenue is to have much more private sector activities going on in your country. Wow. And for you to get that, you have to reform your economy in a very intense way.
I wanted to quickly switch totally from economy because that is not my calling. You have been in the forefront of the campaign of the Bring Back Our Girls. And every time we hear the government saying everything we hear about what they're not doing is fake news, as opposed to, doing something actually. So the Boko Haram recently said government had not been in negotiations with them and killed 2 more of the women in their custody. What exactly do you think is the real news about the situation now? What is the present situation and which one is exactly real? Is government really negotiating, or Boko Haram is the one just, not compromising enough? What exactly is the situation?
The situation is that I would have information to is what exactly is in the public domain. And that has been part of the reason that our campaign has not been pleased with governments, whether the previous one or this current one. When your citizens are in trouble, like our Chibok girls have been, like Leah Charibu has been, like Hawa and Alice were, and until they killed the two of them. When your citizens are in trouble, what other nations do is to try to manage the information process in a way that does not risk the security, very sensitive security information, but at the same time, in a balanced way that ensures that people can go away feeling our country is doing, something credible is being done. In this particular case, it's like, you almost have to say, what's the problem here? Don't you understand that it's human life? We have had to know intimately parents of Chibok girls, parents of Dapchi girl, Leah Charibo, the parents and families, husbands and sisters and brothers of the midwife, the three humanitarian aid workers. And it doesn't feel good when they now look to us and say to us, so what's going on?
You have nothing to say.
That is too painful. Okay. I do not believe that any society, properly so-called, should leave people to deal with their tragedies.
Exactly, to self-help.
We can't do that.
Ma, I want to go to education. As a one-time Minister of Education, what do you think the government can do to salvage the decaying educational system, knowing fully well that out of the 7.04% was allocated of the 8.1 trillion in 2018 budget was allocated to the educational system? What can we do? Where do we go from there?
So the education story at the time that I was Minister of Education showed clearly that we must not immediately, say the problem in education is money. We must not. Because I found clearly that there is the money story, but if you made it a single story of money, you would just put money into a dysfunctional system.
Exactly.
And when you put money into a dysfunctional system, you don't get results. What you get is a well-funded dysfunctionality. And that is not helpful to the children that you want to train. So what we did was really to identify the different elements of crisis: teacher quality crisis, outdated curriculum crisis, the poor adoption of technology crisis, the funding distortions crisis, the crisis of instructional materials, the crisis of environment for learning, the crisis of lack of evaluation and inspection and quality assurance in education, the crisis of a lack of ethics in education practices, in examination practices, the crisis of gender disparity. In other words, you're looking at girls and boys in education, in school systems. The crisis of special needs education. People don't even know that at least 20% of children in the public school system have one learning defect or the other.
We have to go on a break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back. Welcome back to Your View.
Thanks for staying with us. So, Atiku had a question?
Still within education, I totally agree with you in terms of the fact that it's not a funding problem. It's more of a reform problem. And you've mentioned a lot of the challenges that we need to deal with. Can you now give us ideas and suggestions on how we can deal with it?
Okay, so we had quite these solutions as part of the education reforms in the 2006-2007. So on teacher adequacy and teacher quality issues, we then put a special teacher scheme that hired special teachers that through the federal government that were sent to especially the rural areas across the country. It was a special teacher scheme. Some 45,000 teachers were under that scheme. Then we introduced in-service training, professional training of teachers. And then we did, and that was like over 120,000 teachers across the country were going to go through this professional in-service training that had stopped. It was no longer happening in the country for decades. We reintroduced that. Then we did a special program to upgrade all the teacher certificate, grade 2 teachers. There were many of them, massively. It had been prescribed that people should only have teacher grade 2 certificate. But we had majority of the teachers in the primary schools and even secondary schools, so we had to upgrade them. And we designed a special teachers program with the National Teachers Institute in Kaduna.
It's not working.
And to get them to NCE. What you should ask is whether it was continued.
You see, I want to go to the issue of being continuum because there's an issue of procurement that, public procurement, which you champion, which calls you the Madam Due process. And I was looking at myself that between that time you left office until now, I remember when Minister Fashola kept saying that, oh, there's no money for this, the budget, contractors were not paid, there were issues of people just leaving the works, and he had to now starting the contract over again. And I'm thinking, I thought you already handled issues of the process of getting contracts where we know you do a job and you get paid, and there are no issues. What happened? What happened? What was the between the time you left and the time where this administration took? What exactly happened?
Mariah, I wish I could answer. What gets to happen is people see me at the airport or somewhere and they say, Madam, due process is no longer due process. And they say it to me. Some of them even say it and laugh. And I say, why are you laughing? You should not. Are you laughing? You think it's my personal problem? It's not. We must be a people. We must be a people that build on things. The idea that we roll back things is part of why we haven't made the kind of progress that contemporary countries have made.
You brought me to where I would like to, one thing that confuses me. In Nigeria of the past and present, there's a major difference in how we deal with, public ills. In some ways, you see us, it's almost like we're so used to Nollywood that we just enjoy the movies. So people go, they have allegations against their person and they are going to the EFCC. Instead of being sober, they are doing, we hype it. The media also, they're complicit in this. We make a news out of it. We kind of almost celebratory of, the wrongs the things that we should stand against.
Of society.
Is it that we love our situation as Nigerians, or what exactly should we be doing?
I think that, what happened over time was a society just watched leadership set a bad example of not punishing bad behavior. Instead, what began to happen was that bad behavior was rewarded, good behavior was punished. People rationally made some decisions and said, what pays better is bad behavior, so I'm going to supply bad behavior. What gets punished is good behavior, so I'm going to withhold good behavior. So we distorted what we call incentives and sanctions in our society. And because we did that, there became a normalizing. The normalizing effect is what you now see, where somebody is accused and they are really going, almost like, it's unbelievable. So I share your utter consternation.
So, the older generation have called us a generation of noisemakers because we sit back and let things happen and we do not care. Now, how do you think we can, as young people, take charge of our destiny in terms of leadership and standing up for justice?
I don't think that the older generation has a moral ground to to call you that. Because in our older generation, and that's the generation born in the 60s, we also, only a few of us actually have the voice and use it. Most of our own generation were so scared of military in this country that they swallowed their voice, and they also want their children to continue to swallow their voices. But a few of us that even have used their voices, what are we called? They say noisemaker. Yeah. She's saying it so that she will be relevant. And so she can, you know, and you think of it and you say, how silly can this be? I need relevance. I mean, how can I need relevance?
Let me go to the issue of Transparency International, because anytime Transparency International comes up with anything, or even Amnesty International comes up with a report, the first thing we say, oh, it's a lie. It's wrong. Oh, it's unfounded. How did they come about it? They can't just be the one telling us these things. What are the parameters? As a co-founder, what are the parameters? How do they come about these reports? Because how authentic are they for us to even believe as a people that this is what these people are saying makes sense? Because our government makes it look as if I don't know what they're talking about. They're liars.
Okay, so if a ranking tool that the World Bank, the IMF, the World Economic Forum, businesses, you know, multinational companies use in assessing countries, if you want to now begin to say it is not a valuable tool, you know you're on your own.
Yes, so true.
So Nigeria, you know, any government that refuses to take ownership of a problem cannot solve it. Because if any problem not owned cannot be solved. Yes. We know we have a systemic corruption challenge. We must not get a very, like always on the defensive. You know, the truth is that when a problem is identified and you confronted it head on, you know, the way when we were in government, Transparency International, you know, ranked, and in a particular year, the ranking was, you know, bad. And I said to the people in government, I said, guys, we must take ownership of this. Because I was in the sub-team head for the economic team on good governance, accountability, transparency, anti-corruption. I said, we will take ownership of this. So what we're going to say to the world is, yes, we admit that we have corruption challenges in this country. What we are going to do would be A, B, C, D.
Okay. So in corruption, since we're talking about corruption, the government, this administration, spearheaded the campaign, its campaign into power on corruption.
Yes, sir.
That we're going to deal with corruption. 3 years plus down the line, how would you say it has fared? Number one. Number two, the issues of corruption have been said not to just be something on the leadership level. So do you think we should deal with it from top down or bottom up?
I'll take the last one first. So in Transparency International, we normally say that there are two types of corruption. There's the grand corruption. That's the one that the people with plenty of levers of power engage in. And then there is petty corruption, which is the one where the poor public servant is finding a way to have incremental income, or the policeman on the road and things like that. So we normally say that the minute a society is able to fix the big opportunities that exist for grand corruption to happen, it would ease up more resources, like the kind of conversation we're having on minimum wage. Because if people are not stealing on the grand corruption basis, they would do better policies. When you have public officials who are getting a good life, they would not do good policies, so there would be so much in terms of needs in that society, and petty corruption would then take root. Then on the assessment of the government, they haven't done well, because they have pigeonholed fighting corruption into, you know, EFCC grabbing a couple of people and taking them before the courts. Fighting corruption is much more comprehensive. You have to prevent opportunities for corruption. You have to build the systems that would reduce
the judiciary.
And then you would have to do sanctions. And then you would have to lead in an exemplary way, where the leader is setting the example and saying to society, we need a different orientation.
Let's go on a break. The final lap of this conversation is up next. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back. Welcome back to Your View.
Thanks for staying with us. For those wondering why we're not talking politics, it's because when politics starts, then her party will pay us to discuss it. But right now, we're not going to talk about ambitions. But it is interesting that you are running for office. And
yes,
do you
running
think,
to be president.
Yes, you're running for office of president. Do you think Nigeria is ready for a female president? Not just the fact that we need change, because people are asking for change, but do we need a female president at this time?
We do need a person who can solve the problems of leadership in our country. We are in a leadership crisis.
Yeah, exactly.
And when a nation faces leadership crisis, then it comes to the understanding that leadership is gender neutral.
Oh, fun.
Yes.
Let me go to the audience because we have one or two questions, but let me take one tweet. Do you have any tweets, Nima?
Tosin says there are two types of corruption, one by the elites and the political class whose acts deprive its people of basic human needs. Then the second by the masses as a means to deal and adapt to the inefficiencies of government institutions. Mandak says, why is it difficult for Mogul, Sowore, Durotoye, Oby and co to work as a team and give us a credible third force?
I think that it would, over time, find its rhythm. I don't rule that out.
Right, because people have talked about that third force. Everybody's looking for a third option. There's the main two parties, and people are saying, give us options. We keep telling them there are options. We have options.
But you see, the thing is, we will get to that place. You know, a day is a long time in politics. We'll get to that place where we all realize and agree that there are two candidates in this race. There is the candidate, the candidates that belong to the political class, and then the candidate that belong to the people. And it is the candidate of the people that the people should be
pushing out.
Let's take a question from the audience. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Okay, my question is this. Many people have lost confidence in our electoral process. Do we need to get external bodies to achieve free and fair elections? So what's your take on that, Ma? Free and fair elections, how do we go about it, really?
I think that, the free and fair elections are not anything esoteric. It's not rocket science. Countries have done it. And so we also are on the progress toward it. What needs to happen more is the engagement of the citizens. Sure. The office of the citizen is the most important office in the land. But majority of those who occupy the office of the citizens are always sleeping. It is time to wake up. You are the best person to monitor the electoral umpire, meaning the INEC. INEC needs your public scrutiny. If you're not engaged in that process and you don't use your voice to determine how well they do, you will complain for a long time. And I think that the measures are there for citizens to turn themselves into vanguards that monitor what happens at the polling units, that follow the statements of INEC and the challenges that happen with the electoral process.
Let me take one more question from the audience. Go ahead, please.
Yes. During my time when I was in school, I enjoyed free education. And I believe there are youths watching me talking now, agitating for free and fair forum for youths that have tasted the honey and the sweetness of Nigeria, that wants to come out and speak. Please, we just need a fair ground for us, people like me and people watching me, because I believe they are seeing and hearing me now. They want to come out and say it the way Nigeria used to be. When I was in school and I enjoyed free education, it was very, very sweet. I never dreamed of it that Nigeria could turn this. So please, we need a fair ground for all, for free, outspoken of mind. Thank you.
Yes, but it's interesting that you say that. Today's world offers you a platform to express your voice. You don't even need anybody to give you the platform. Just on your Twitter page, on your Twitter handle, on your Facebook page, it depends on what kind of conversation interests you. Don't misuse that platform. That platform is a platform of social linkages and the amplification of your voice. And you can structure your organizational capacity by connecting to as many people who share your ideas as possible.
Right.
You know what we need is
drastic situations call for drastic measures. I look at the democracy that we practice in Nigeria, and I think completely scrap this system of democracy that we practice. That's take out the house. The houses that we have are not representing us the way they should. So we have a complicated system. If we have you as president today, what is the guarantee that the house will not be a clog in the wheel of progress?
Please, once you take away the legislative arm of government, you no longer have a democracy.
So what should we do to that?
So what you're pointing at is the frustration that we all feel, right? So it means that the quality of people that enter our politics would need to improve. Girls, I'm asking you to enter our politics. The quality of conversation that you have when you do your program shows that you're engaged in the matters of development. Don't limit yourself.
But we lose credibility when we do that. We feel we lose credibility because we feel like we're the voice of the people. We want to join them.
That's what she's saying. People are saying that she's going into politics.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? This old order political class that has mismanaged the country, they've been comfortable for all of us to just ignore politics. We now know that if we don't fix politics, we're in trouble. You see this thing they say, if we don't kill corruption, corruption will kill us. The truth is, if we don't fix politics and the old other politicians in this country, they will kill us.
Unfortunately, goodness, time is far spent. Thank you. I mean, we ran out of time. Thank you so much, Ma, for coming. It's such a pleasure having you. You got to come back.
I'm glad
Hopefully, once campaign starts, we'll come back and have a proper conversation on what you plan to do if you do get into office, because we'd like to really hear your position on that.
Definitely.
Have a fabulous day. Hope you enjoyed the show as much as you did. Have a fabulous day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ma.